Happy birthday, America. I hope we can keep going and return to what our founding fathers had in mind. On this 4th of July, wanted to discuss my thoughts on independence, the right to bear arms, as well as maybe some points about assembling your own AR, things you might want to keep in mind that I've learned over the years. First and foremost, never forget that it was an armed populace that was able to overthrow a tyrannical government. That's why this country exists. That's why we have the Second Amendment. It is not about hunting. It's not even about self-defense. It's about resisting the government, should the government need resisting. That's why we have it. That's the spirit that I believe in it. And a big part of that is being able to assemble and construct firearms at home. It's always been a right. It's completely legal. That said, putting an AR together is assembly, not necessarily building. We like to call things builds, gives us a sense of pride, but really it's assembly. You're buying pre-made parts, putting it all together thanks to standardized system. You can have an amalgamation like this that has several different companies involved that turns out to be a great rifle, even though very few parts come together. You still have to get the receiver, you still have to make a transfer for a firearm. You're not necessarily building a firearm from scratch, you're just assembling. However, the AR, being America's rifle, no, that's not what AR stands for, is the most ubiquitous platform out there. It's like Tinker Toys or Legos for adults. Lots of fun, lots of options. We've done numerous builds on this channel, from mild to wild, as well as reviewed a lot of rifles. This is one of my personal builds. I put this together just for the fun of it. It was never really meant to be on the channel. This receiver set, beautifully Cerakoted, was a special that Stag Arms, the old Stag Arms, before they were taken over by so White Wolf Capital owns them now, before they moved all that. It's an old set. Had this gun for a while, but I saw this set, had to get my hands on it, and it inspired a build that turned out pretty darn nice. I wanted just a, not necessarily lightweight in the sense of everything skeletonized, but I wanted an easy, quick handling, comfortable rifle to use for a variety of purposes and reasons. Not a specialty, heavy hitter or long range or precision match or competition, just an all-around good rifle. And though I've assembled several ARs since this build, this one has been one of my favorites. So let's go over some of the things that made it turn out so nice. And a lot of that, I believe, is the front end of this gun. So the flash hider and the gas block are titanium, not steel, and you notice that there's fluting on the end of the barrel. Not the whole barrel, just that end. What that's done is shaved numerous ounces. How many exactly? I don't know, because I really don't care. I shoulder it to feel things. But that shaved weight off of this end of the gun. This end of the gun is where the most leverage is against you. So weight out here makes a gun slower or sloppier to handle. If you can shave weight here, the tip, end of the barrel, gas block, especially if you have a long gas system like this, that makes a world of a difference. Also, you notice that I went with irons. These Ultradyne sights are spectacular. There's plenty of specific coverage out there on them, but they are not backup irons. They are precision sights that happen to fold. Great setup, no batteries required, relatively lightweight. Furthermore, on that lightweightness, now this handguard, of course, has quite a bit of weight reduced from it, but you notice that I've got a decent gap between the muzzle and the end of the handguard. That's because, aside from when you're running irons out here, which is why I came this far, extra handguard, unless you're going to put accessories out on the front of the gun that you need to have on the front of the gun, like a light or something like that, extra handguard is extra weight overall, and it's extra weight out front, defeating that lesson that I just shared with you a minute ago about trying to shave weight off the front. So if you don't need to have accessories, or if you don't have really long arms and you want extra handguard to prevent from touching barrel or to be more comfortable while shooting, go with a shorter handguard if you can. Dropping an inch or two off here can make a world of difference in the way the rifle handles. Back to the fluting on this. So fluting looks cool, that's why a lot of folks have it, but it has a couple other functions. It does shave weight. In the case of this barrel, it also increases surface area, which helps with cooling. So if it's going to be a rapid fire rifle, like this potentially could be, that's a nice way to help cool things down, especially up near the gas block. Speaking of gas systems, the longer the gas system you can have, the smoother the rifle will shoot. This thing, and I will try to dig up some old footage, is incredibly smooth to shoot. It is just absolutely wonderful, and part of that is having a longer gas system for the barrel. That's just, you have less, I don't know the math, I believe it's less actual force actuating, but it's a smoother recoil impulse, and that helps you stay on target, that helps you with your follow-up shots, makes a world of a difference there. Moving on to receivers, it really doesn't matter. If I could have gotten this without a forward assist, I would have gone that way, simply because if I can't close it by shoving my thumb on the divot of the bolt carrier, then it's a malfunction more serious than the forward assist should do. That's my personal opinion. Now, there's a lot of people that get really upset over that. That's cool. If you want a forward assist, get one. I really don't think they're all that necessary. I did serve 2 tours, one in Afghanistan, one in Iraq. For a situation like that, and my training at the time, sure, forward assist it. But as a recreational shooter, depending on what you think you're going to be doing with your rifle, I don't think jamming something into battery that doesn't want to go into battery is necessarily a smart or safe idea. This dust cover is optional. You don't necessarily need one. If you want to go fancy and get a clean look like this, I really like this one. This is from V7 Weapons, same as the gas block and the muzzle device. Their stuff is not inexpensive, but a pride point comes with it. When it comes to triggers, that's a completely personal choice. We had Tia's older son over for a rifle build, and it was fascinating and heartwarming to watch him go through the variety of triggers that I had for him to feel out. It was his first build, wanted to see what he'd like and not like, and he was wise enough to realize that some triggers are too light and too short for what he wants to do with it. That is a thing. It can be. Keep in mind, you're launching a round when that trigger goes off that could destroy whatever is in front of the rifle, be that an object or a being. So, be smart on trigger. Go for feel, not necessarily for weight. Back to combat experience with a GI M16A2 in Afghanistan with a really cruddy GI trigger. When shit hit the fan, I do not recall that trigger being too heavy for me. So weight is not a thing. It's more about feel, having it be predictable, knowing it's going to go off, knowing when it's going to go off, and more importantly, when it's not going to go off can be a big deal. Charging handles are something that everybody likes to make. Another thing that everyone seems to have an opinion on. The Ridian Raptor is the most popular one by far, I think largely because of YouTube. This one is by POF, and as you can see, it's ambidextrous. Keep in mind, the wider these wings are, the more leverage you're going to have. That makes it more comfortable, easier to pull on. That's also more leverage on the mechanical device, which means the more likely you are to break it if you have to mortar the gun to get a stuck round out of the chamber. As well as the wider these things are, the more likely they are to snag on something or dig into you when you're carrying it slung. So what I liked about this one was it's wide enough and it's ambi. The ambi is not because I swap shoulders and firing hands all the time. It's more because sometimes on the single side release, it just doesn't. Some charging handles, I've not disengaged promptly when it was just a single side. I like the dual side because I reach up with 2 fingers anyways. It's just double reassurance that it's going to unlock for me. When it comes to stocks, this is another point of personal preference. I like this one from MFT because of this rounding here. It works really well rolling into the shoulder, coming from low ready or slung up into a firing position. If that's your thing, this might be worth considering. If you're going to be benching, get whatever's comfortable for you. Another thing I like about this MFT is it's very lightweight. Weight back here, of course, total weight of the rifle is something you feel when you're carrying it, but weight back here is not as important or impactful when it comes to running drills or things like that. In my experience, it's more about shape and size. If you're going to be carrying a lot, shaving some weight can make a big difference. Now I want to show you some stuff that's inside this thing. It's a little bit different than your standard AR build. The first of which is the buffer system. Now, these are not inexpensive, but this is a fun thing to have. This is from DPM Systems. You've seen us use a lot of their products in handguns. What's not so well known is that they also have a buffer system for ARs. What this does is you can see there's 2 springs here, plus we have our regular spring. So you have 3 springs in total that are taking turns, doing their part to decelerate and then return the carrier into battery. It makes for a really smooth shooting experience, like ridiculously smooth, especially because you're not getting that slam of this hitting the back end. Even if you had something that hit that hard, we've got rubber back here. So it's a really, really cool system, definitely worth looking into. This is why a lot of folks, when they saw the Marigun run, said, oh, that thing's overgassed, which is incorrect. If you've already commented that from the footage that I looped in here from shooting it, it's okay. On that note about the whole o'clock gassing thing and people looking at where the shells go and say, oh, you're overgassed, undergassed. That way of gauging gassing, in my opinion, is only accurate if you have a completely mil-spec system and you're using mil-spec ammo. As soon as you change any part, especially ammo. I mean, I can make the same rifle look over or under gassed just by swapping ammo. It's a general guide, it's not an absolute. The reason why this thing appears to be overgassed is thanks to the setup. The bolt has an initial light resistance, so we've got increased velocity the first couple milliseconds of bolt movement, and that's what really whips that brass out. Then it all slows down, as you've seen by how smoothly the thing shoots. So it's not overcast. Sorry. When it comes to bolts and carriers, there's lots of opinions out there. I have experienced very few failures on a mil-spec system. That doesn't mean that there can't be improvements. Some things might be a little gimmicky, some things might be an actual improvement. Hard to tell. This one is from POF USA, and it, in my opinion, is an improvement. You'll notice that the gas key is the same piece as the carrier. So you've eliminated one of the spots of potential failures if you have a leak under the gas key, which sometimes can be very hard to identify and diagnose. That's eliminated with this. The other thing that's neat about the POF system is this guy. This is a roller bearing, so that the cam key is not gouging the receiver. It's just rolling along it, and you can see that this can turn, this can rotate without impacting how the bolt and carrier itself actually work. Now, having that requires this cutout here on the tube, so it's a little bit complicated to do as an aftermarket change to an existing carrier. That's why I just went with a flat-out complete POF build. I hope this summary of things that I learned with this build inspires you. I'd love to hear any tips or tricks that you've discovered in your own builds. And yes, this is an A2 grip. I thought for the Marigun, it just seemed appropriate to have the same grip that I carried in Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, not the same one, but same general design. There are very few wrong ways to build. It's just a matter of choosing what your intent is and going after it. For this thing, as I said, I just wanted an all-around good shooter, one that could serve multiple purposes and not be a giant, heavy monstrosity. And it was all inspired by this kick-ass builder set that I really wish Stag Arms would bring back. Now, Stag Arms is now owned by the same company that owns Aero Precision, and I saw that this year Aero Precision has a builder set kind of like this, but not to the same extent, not with that detail on there. We've got Lady Liberty, even the Liberty and Justice for All is on the buffer tube extension, and it's just a really cool setup that I'm proud to have. I'm glad I happened to have some cash when I happened to see this on sale, because they were gone. Have a safe 4th of July, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.